everybody, what is up? It is October, it is officially spooky season, and some of you may recall that Guinness and I took a field trip last year to go visit the Kings Park Psych Center, which is one of the famous haunted places on Long Island. And today we are taking another field trip. We are headed to Lake Ronkonkoma. So buckle up and get ready for some more local lore with Elena and Guinness. Should that be the title of this series? Hey, so we've just arrived at Lake Ronkonkoma, which is located on Setauket and Secotog lands. You can see it behind me. There it is, the infamous Lake Ronkonkoma. I feel like now is probably as good a point as any in this video to say caution. There will be like colonial and revisionist historical narratives ahead, so please use caution. So according to local legend, sometime in the 1600s, a Setauket princess fell in love with a settler by the name of Hugh Birdsall who lived on the opposite side of Lake Ronkonkoma. Now, the chief of the Setauket tribe wasn't very happy about his daughter falling in love with a settler and so forbade their romance. They would send secret messages to each other across the lake in the night in secret. And at some point, when the princess could bear being separated from her love no longer, she rowed out to the middle of Lake Ronkonkoma, stabbed herself, and her body fell to the bottom of the lake. How much of it is actually true remains to be seen. I can say that from my very limited research on the subject, there are actual descendants of this guy, Hugh Birdsall, who still live on Long Island. But as for the rest of it, who knows? The chilling clincher to that story goes that the Setauket princess who drowned herself now haunts this body of water, and every year she drowns one man to take the place of her lost lover. As I said, the Lady of the Lake legend is the main Lake Ronkonkoma myth. This is what most of the articles and stories and accounts that I've read about have featured, but there are some other sort of scary legends about this lake, like it's bottomless, it has no bottom. We're going to attribute that particular legend to the Long Island tendency for hyperbole. Now, Lake Ronkonkoma actually is the deepest lake on Long Island. However, it is not bottomless. The bottom has been recorded. It is somewhere between 90 to 100 feet deep, depending on which source you read. And the drop off is extremely sudden. You get a pretty steady decline to 45 feet of depth, then suddenly the bottom drops out, nothing but dark waters, and that's why the legend claims that this lake is bottomless. Many people believe that this deep drop-off section of the lake is where the body of the Setauket princess found its final resting place. And I read this kind of scary account of someone who was swimming near the drop-off. They had just crossed into that deep water and they suddenly felt their body like lifted up and pushed away from the area. So while I was preparing for this video, I read a bunch of articles and stories featuring accounts from Ronkonkoma locals and lifeguards from the lake from previous times. Of course, it's not swimmable now, and we'll get to that. And also local historians, which all feature different takes on this local mythology and the real history of tragic drownings in this lake. Because of course they do exist, and there is a recorded history of bugs flying into my eye while I'm trying to make a video. One of the preeminent sources of local statistic gathering that I found online was the accounts of a person who worked here as a lifeguard named David Inyeri, who did some of his own data collection and has some sort of mystical and mysterious experiences with this lake, including prophetic dreams about drownings, most notably one that happened on the 4th of July where he had recurring nightmares about someone drowning and then the vision of fireworks. According to the article I read, David had been safeguarding this lake for over 30 years, and in that time he had seen many drownings and incidences of drownings in the lake. He did maintain that most of them were men. Of course, with any local legend, there are going to be conflicting accounts and differing sets of data, and I did end up finding testimony in an article from a local historian named Ellen Ockvist, who had been conducting her own data sets on fatalities in Lake Ronkonkoma. And she also maintains that there have been a lot of drowning incidents in this lake. However, her data shows that the majority of victims have been women and children, not men. Regardless of who we want to believe about what may or may not be haunting the waters of Lake Ronkonkoma, the fact does remain that this is a geographical site where there have been many fatalities and incidences of drowning over the years, and some of them have been surrounded by mysterious and spooky circumstances. The geese don't seem to be afraid, but then again, I don't think geese are afraid of anything. A goose would probably see a ghost and be like, all right, you want to tangle? Let's tangle. Isn't that right? I should also mention the Setauket princess in this legend, the Lady of Ronkonkoma Lake, has become a sort of lore figure in the town of Ronkonkoma, to the point where they have carved a statue of her in wood at one of the local establishments. And the folks who decided that they wanted to carve the statue of this princess did consult with and get approval from the Shinnecock Nation before constructing it, which I think is massively important and something that is really important for us to remember when we're talking about local lore that involves Indigenous tribes of Long Island, that there are still Indigenous tribes living on Long Island. And as much as we give weight and importance to these lores and legends, we should be giving support and our help and attention to the tribes who are still living here today. I am here again with my intrepid sidekick Guinness, investigating a lakeshore. And I have brought Guinness to the beach in my videos before. I've brought him to the park at the end of my street. And usually one of his favorite things to do, besides chase after the birds, is get off leash and jump straight into the water. Some of you may be thinking, okay, why would you ever let your dog swim in a haunted lake? And of course, I did briefly consider that. As we know, I have complicated feelings about ghosts, but that's not the reason I'm not letting him off leash today. Besides this being a public park, in the past few years, some severe algae blooms have developed in Lake Ronkonkoma, which has actually rendered it unswimmable for both humans and animals. We found the protector of the lake here. Cutie. I feel like I usually end these videos by giving a little sort of like Elena weigh in on the haunted aspect of the location, kind of give my feelings overall about the location and the legend and the lore and all of the things that go into making this place, Lake Ronkonkoma, one of the most haunted places in America, according to one of my friends. I can't ignore the realities that there have been real human tragedies that have taken place in this lake. It is a fact that lives have been lost in this lake. There have been drownings and fatalities, and of course that's terrible. And I do think that that gives a place a kind of energy. When tragedies have occurred in a place, I do think that energy collects and lore around it collects. But when I think ultimately about the Lady of the Lake legend and the algae bloom and the also contributions of colonialism to environmental catastrophe on Long Island, I find myself thinking, what is actually scary here? Is it this mythical Setauket princess who lives at the bottom of the lake and is haunting it? Or is it in some ways like the human contributions, and specifically like colonial contributions to the degradation of our local environment? Is that getting too like meta about it, or does that make sense? That's kind of what I found myself thinking about today. So that's it for this video. We visited the haunted shores of Lake Ronkonkoma. We discovered that the true horrors were colonialism and ecological collapse, as we always knew they would be. Hey Guinness, what did you think of the lake? He said, I think I'm tired, I want to go lie down. If you have any stories about Lake Ronkonkoma or experiences of this haunted place on Long Island, please leave a comment. Let me know if I've gotten anything wrong or if you've heard different information. This is the way local legends work, right? We tell each other, and then suddenly there's a story that's been spanning over 400 years of history. I am going to link to a bunch of articles and sources and stories about Lake Ronkonkoma down in the description below, so do check those out. And I'm also going to link to a bunch of information and resources on ways to help and support the Shinnecock Nation on Long Island. Oh, I may also try to put something on algae bloom because that's recently been so bad on Long Island. It's really been very bad this year. Thanks so much for joining us for this video, and I will see you on Sunday for some art about haunted places and ghosts. Bye-bye. Hey everyone, it is future Elena coming at you from the editing room, and I realized I forgot to mention something really important in my video. During the past week, I celebrated my 28th birthday, and in honor of that, and also in honor of the work that I've been doing on YouTube for the past year and a half, I launched a Patreon. Yay! So if you've been watching and enjoying the content on this channel and you are able to support financially, please head on down to the description. I'm gonna link to my newly created Patreon. There are all sorts of tiers for membership starting as low as $3 a month. I would also like to shout out my very first patrons. Yay! A huge thank you to Alessia, Lynn, Maya, Brenda, and Izzy. Thank you so much for supporting the work I do here. That's it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. I cannot end this video without giving a shout out to my absolute favorite person from any of the articles I read about Lake Ronkonkoma. I was reading an article where they got quotes from a bunch of different people. The lifeguard I was talking about, the historian I was talking about, and they also got a quote from someone who they literally just billed him as a Ronkonkoma local named Danny Guido, and his quote was, "I would not swim there." Thank you so much, Danny. Absolute legend. Same.